Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Emma Jones, founder of Enterprise Nation. Just a little note this morning before we start, which is sending our best wishes to the Prime Minister for a speedy recovery. It has put a bit of a tinge on the day, as I'm sure you will appreciate. But thank you to everybody who has tuned in, who has decided to look at their business today and figure out how to do PR during this rather turbulent and strange time. So I have a great guest with us today. Amanda has been delivering wonderful PR solutions for small businesses for quite some time. Amanda will tell us about that in a moment. But for those of you who are logged in, to pose a question to Amanda, just pop it in the admin chat bar. Lunch and Learns are a quick, punchy 30 minutes. It's been lovely getting notes from people who are coming on virtually daily, actually. So if you have come back from a previous webinar, welcome back. Or if you're new to Lunch and Learns, it's 30 minutes. I will pose some questions to Amanda first of all, and then we will get into your questions. So if you have a question for Amanda on all things PR, then pop it into the admin chat bar and we will try and get through as many questions.
I hope I can answer
it. So Amanda Fitzgerald, lovely segue into your good self. So first of all, give us a brief background and tell us what you do now for small businesses.
Okay, so I first met Emma Jones back in 2008 when I was running my own online business selling luxury knitwear imported from Peru. I discovered that the only way that I could get people to discover about this amazing fibre was actually to get press. Okay, and so I managed to get myself into all sorts of publications, mainly, all of the nationals, the glossies, any publication I thought where my target audience would hang out, I really pitched to them severely. And I managed to get some great press coverage. And then I decided, you know what, I actually prefer teaching people how to get into the press and selling my wares, so I can help you with, PR, product PR, as well as service PR. So I now help and train entrepreneurs how they can get their own press coverage, because I'm really passionate that people know how they can do it themselves.
Amazing, beautifully succinct elevator pitch there. I should expect no less. And Amanda, before there's questions coming through already, actually, before we go into the kind of practical questions, just give us an overall view. We had a webinar on sales yesterday, and this question kept on coming up: is it appropriate right now to be selling? And I guess the same question applies to PR. How does one promote themselves at a time when indeed you could say it's a time for kind of quiet consideration? So overall views on kind of your thoughts around, should businesses stop doing PR? I think I know what your answer to that will be, but just kind of what are the nuances to get right at the moment?
Yes, I mean, that's a question which is bubbling around in my kind of entrepreneurial community. People are getting denigrated for selling at their normal prices, and actually, and they say, well, you should be offering our services free. And a lot of us are actually saying, when you go to the supermarkets, are they discounting their prices for us because we're in coronavirus times? People, businesses who are still functioning aren't necessarily discounting their prices, and they are still promoting themselves if it's correct so to do. And basically, we are small businesses. We all help each other. So I could be buying lovely hand wash from my aunt who runs a lavender farm in Shropshire. She will then, with that money, then potentially purchase a service from somebody else. What we're trying to do is trying to keep the economy going by helping each other's businesses and not sitting going, oh my God, all I can do is go to the supermarket, that's all I'm going to be purchasing. We still need to broaden our knowledge base about what we're doing. So a bit of CPD we can be currently doing while we're in kind of lockdown. But in terms of promoting your businesses, it is a time, but it's a time to be sensitive whilst you're doing it. But journalists, I mean, I've just gone through Journo Request. It's a hashtag on Twitter. And there are lots of questions out there. People, journalists are still looking for small businesses, is what I'm trying to say, and experts as well.
And actually, just on that, just before we move on from that point, because I know you logged in the other evening to the Meet the Journalists event, and I think of 5 journalists we had, all of them said that they use Journo Request. So just for those people who are listening who don't know what Journo Request is, maybe give us a bit more information about that.
Yeah, no, Journo Request is brilliant. And really, journalists hang out predominantly in Twitter. That is where they'll hang out. They potentially could be hanging out in Instagram or on LinkedIn, but the place where you're seeing all the moving and shaking is on Twitter. And you go to this hashtag, and it's called hashtag Journo Request. I'm going to give you some examples. The BBC looking to speak to independent businesses who have seen an increase in demand over the last few weeks. That was a local one from Cambridge and Bedfordshire. Metro was looking for a skincare expert for a very quick feature this morning, so that's non-coronavirus related. Verdict magazine, I'm looking for tech startups to include in a roundup page for May's Verdict magazine. Metro was looking for a chocolatier for, because it's Easter happening very soon. BBC, this is coronavirus related, was looking for hairdressers who are willing to cut their own hair, or a mannequin's hair for a BBC news video. People are looking for DIY tips on lockdown. So it's a brilliant resource. Just hang out in Journo Request is all I can say, because that's where you're going to see what the forward features are going to be coming as well from journalists.
Nice. And when do you think is the right time for sharing good news stories? And not to pull out a particular publication, but the Sunday Times had like a double page spread of, sadly, businesses that are struggling. And yet we are hearing from so many businesses who are quickly spotting gaps in markets. They're changing their business to kind of find new customers. Incredibly inspiring stories that we're hearing. Do you feel it's too soon for those businesses to present themselves to the press? Are the press still in, negative mode of all the things that are going wrong? And do you think that time will switch?
Yes, well, I've been watching other webinars as well about with journalists, and this was really focused in on the coronavirus at the moment. It was an American one, but I did put in the chat box, aren't we going to be getting fatigue, coronavirus fatigue? And we actually do need to have some good, feel good stories to keep us going, keep us pepped up, because you can't just literally open up the paper, as you say, and just literally have 14 pages of coronavirus. I did a Sunday Papers review last Sunday, and I went to the Observer, which was brilliant because it had a bit of coronavirus and it had some lovely interviews with some people, and it was nothing to do with coronavirus. I still think we need to hear good stories, and I think we're going to get snowblind to it. And it's rather like Brexit. You have too much of it, you're just going to be switching off. So I'm sure the editors are going to be very mindful that they can't just simply be talking about the negativity of coronavirus. Like you said, there are some brilliant stories coming out. I've got a new client who's just literally come on board, and she is the first female tailor in Savile Row. So she can't, the shops are all shut, so you can't go and have a suit fitted in Savile Row. So what's she going to do? She's doing Zoom consultations. So she's pivoting really well. And there's a story about a ballet dancer. So obviously she fills up the halls doing all her, tap and ballet against the mirrors and pirouetting. She's now doing it from her sitting room. So, and these are the kind of stories that we need to, it's feel good stories. And whenever you think about getting yourself into the press, why are you actually reading that article? I would say 90% of the time it's because it's a human interest element. So what is it about what you're doing currently that you think, that might be quite interesting? What I'm doing is really different from what I normally do. How are you? And the word of the moment, Emma, and I'm sure you've heard about a million times, is pivot. How are businesses pivoting? And it's fascinating to see how they really are.
Lovely. Okay, beautiful. Well, as you've started to give some of these practical tips that businesses can do, let's go into the questions. So we have a first question from Barat. Barat says it would be helpful to have your thoughts on PR strategy for a startup currently building a product but would like to connect to early stage adopters. Good question. So I guess that's, how do you get early stage adopters / customers? What would your advice be?
Okay, so what I'd think first off is who is the actual early adopter? Who are the customers who are going to be consuming your product? So think about who they are, and then you need to think about what publications or outlets, news outlets, where do these people hang out? So where do they consume their business and leisure information? Okay, is it Forbes? Is it BBC channels? Where does your target customer hang out? And then that is where you need to be focusing in on your PR efforts. So if you know for sure that it's Forbes, let's just say Forbes Women, because it might be a female empowerment product or service, then you need to be looking at, let's just say go into Forbes and go female empowerment, or whatever your product is. It can be mental health, whatever your topic is, research, and then you'll see who are the contributors for that particular topic. So that's literally talking about Forbes. If you feel that, my knitwear was very kind of la-di-da, and it was Waitrose Woman. So I knew that Waitrose Woman would be reading the Telegraph, and probably the Sunday Times and publications like that. So I would actually be targeting, you know, the fashion editor for the Sunday, you know, for, it's not Stella, is it? Who is it? It's Style magazine. I've got it on the back here. Yeah. So anyway, I'll think about which publications that your target audience is going to be reading.
I love the fact you have set up literally a PR desk in your house. I am just loving that.
You know,
All you
my
have to do.
tripod is a box of Stella.
Okay, that bit we didn't need to know.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, I'm not drinking it this time in the morning. Thank you very much.
Just lovely. Question from Nick. Should B2B companies be doing different PR compared to B2C companies? Great question. And just for those, bless you, who are on the line, B2B is business to business when you're selling to businesses. B2C is when you're selling to consumers. So should PR, Amanda, be different depending on which sector you're in?
I would typically say no, because it's still the same methodology of getting yourself known to that particular journalist, whether it be a consumer journalist or a business journalist. So you still need to do the essential background research of getting onto their radar and finding out who that particular journalist is. And then you need to do a bit of gentle stalking and ingratiating yourself. So go see what they're tweeting, see the articles they've written, retweet them, just gently, nicely get onto their radar. And you can do this in both business and consumer. It's exactly the same methodology of doing it. Yes, it's just a trade press. So you need to also have a good headline. You know, there's so many ways that you can do it, but it's literally the same system of getting into both. That's in my opinion.
Just whilst you mention that, what do you think makes for a good headline?
Okay, so one headline which I did, it's actually somebody who was an Enterprise Nation person. It was back in 2016. It's still my best one ever, I believe. And it was Rose Jumbo who'd launched a range of really spicy hot condiments. Okay, and the headline we came up with, I said, Rose, it's a bit out there, what do you reckon? And it was move over Levi roots. Oh God, now what was it? Move over Levi roots, because then we're linking it to like a very famous person who's just set up, you know, who had set up a spice company, and young female entrepreneur has the secret sauce. How about that? And that literally, the inbox is blast, you know, went haywire, went mad on it. So yeah, but also I was just interviewing actually a journalist yesterday who contributes to Forbes and other massive publications. She just said, do not put coronavirus into the title, because everybody's putting that into the headings at the moment. So if you're going to relate it to coronavirus, just don't do it in the first few words. You know, when you're looking on your phone and you can see a heading, it's probably the first 3 or 4 words which need to be the most kind of impactful.
That's really interesting. I had not heard that, so that's I better share that with our head of media. That's a very interesting observation. A question from Alexandra. Welcome back if you're the Alexandra who joined us yesterday. Will PR mainly be covering charitable stories for the next few months rather than commercial ideas? Great question.
I mean, I don't, to be honest, I don't really know, but I do believe. I mean, I was listening to it was the gig you did the other night with the journalist, and actually somebody did have a charitable endeavour, and they said, well, a lot of people are doing charitable things, blah blah blah. Just try and think of what the angle is going to be. I think just think about the human interest element, which is going to be fascinating, which is going to be different from everybody else. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's only going to be charitable, because looking at the newspapers, you know, that here you go, could the moon change your life? Okay, and they're speaking to an expert in mental health and happiness, so that's nothing to do with charity. And then here, which is the Sunday Times magazine, it's Home Sweet Home, so they're talking to experts in chefs who can make amazing things. You know, there are experts and products all over the place which still need to be mentioned. And I do want to say one thing, looking at Fabulous magazine, we need to bear one thing, really important thing in mind, okay? This is the editor, and she says, it's Sinead McIntyre. She says, coronavirus is impacting all of our lives. We are currently producing the magazine from our homes as we juggle childcare and working cheek by jowl with our other halves. I'm sure you're all in the same boat. So we just need to actually take our hats off to these amazing journalists and editors who are literally doing it from their back gardens or from their garden sheds or their kitchen tables. So we also need to be mindful when we're pitching, not probably to be so harassy. And another thing that the journalist said to me yesterday is, often you can actually call up a publication. You can go to the Daily Mail and call the switchboard, then you can be put through to so and so. Everybody's working from home, or most people are working from home. So it's email me, email. Therefore, your headline has to be king, if you
Really
can.
important. And these journalists are working from home. And again, and sorry for anyone who wasn't on our Meet the Journalists event last week, but the lovely image of Liam Kelly from the Sunday Times sitting in his on his dining table, fully suited, was just wonderful. Once a journalist, always a journalist. A question from Gail. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. What advice do you have for a travel business organising group tours?
Ooh, yes, I've got a friend who's actually got a luxury retreat over in Sri Lanka. So I think it's, we're not going to be in lockdown permanently, but then looking at the news yesterday, it was devastating to see what's going on in India. So that is sad. So what I would probably say is just to be sharing your expertise, talking about past trips you've done. It's probably going to be going forward, in like a year's time, that would, hopefully, or I mean, it is going to be, isn't it, a year/18 months that then when the vaccine's going to be coming out. But I think really it's positioning yourself as a travel expert. I mean, we always hear about Simon Calder. He's always been wheeled out to speak on every single news show going. So if you have expertise in that area, how about pivoting slightly and showing your expertise? Because you see, they still need other people than Simon to be commenting on what is going on. I hope that answers your question in some way.
Nice, lovely. And come back to us, Gail, if there's anything else that you wanted to offer in the comments. A question from Tina. Are most journalists providing free PR via journo request, or does it cost money? And how does one connect with a journalist via Twitter? Do you just tweet them saying, I'm interested? So I think that's in response to a journo request.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, okay, so getting into the press, that you've got an advertorial, which means it's an advert/editorial that you have contributed to make the piece with a journalist, and you're going to pay for that. Editorial is actually PR, which means it's free. You never have to pay a journalist to get into the press. And if you do pay them, A, that's not right, but B, it's an advertorial. Okay, so that's number one. So if you are mentioned, you never ever expect to be asked to pay any money. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, what you need to do, if you see a journo request, again, we used to only have 140 characters, but now it's, you can do about 2 or 3 lines, but try and still be very succinct and respond under, they'll say hashtag looking for, journo requests, looking for experts to talk about the moon. Let's just refer to that one there, okay? So then you need to just reply to that very journalist, and you need to say, you just need to come out something very eye-catching and compelling, saying, UK's leading mental health moon expert, or whatever you potentially are. And I know that sounds a bit kind of like clickbaity, but or jazz hands, but try and come up with something which does represent what you do. And another way, also, if they've got their DMs on, I have to say this expression, you've got to slide into their DMs and do your message in there as well. So then, you're hopefully going to get double whammy, because the problem is with hashtag journo requests, they get so many coming in. Another way I do it also is to do a square bracket, and I would say PR expert responds to the pink moon. Let's just go back to that story. PR expert responds to pink moon. I don't know why the hell I'm a PR expert responding to that, but let's just say, or 5 top tips on how to spot the pink moon, in your square brackets, and then you can say Amanda Fitzgerald, leading expert in astronomy, blah, 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 can talk about this. Okay, does that help? I hope it does.
Yeah. It's, I mean, so much of what you say is just about that kind of standing out. So, getting the attention of the journalist in a tweet in a very quick time.
3 asterisks as well, with those square brackets, or without the brackets, asterisk, and then you do a little comment, and then you do the asterisks, and then it's just going to pop. How are things going to pop? And basically, if you don't do it, then who the hell's going to do it for you? And that's my RuPaul voice.
I feel we're literally on the couch with Amanda Fitzgerald and all of her publications and the moon.
Oh my God.
Question from
Really
Astrid. What publications would be good for the education segment? She's a service-based business, particularly to assist parents and students get the right help for their children. So publications for the education segment. So I guess your kind of target market is parents.
Yes, and I think off the top of my head, I know that the Times, I think they don't do it anymore, the education supplement. Probably best, I know it's really just probably best is just to literally Google educational publications, but all of these main publications, they all will have an education correspondent. Actually, why don't you do this? Go to Twitter, go to people, and then do education correspondent or education journalist, or not even go into Twitter, but go to Google and do that for starters, and then it'll give you hopefully 5 or 6 or 7 journalists, and then it'll say which publications they write for. Maybe that's going to be the best way to start off with. And also, again, I would recommend that you ask your clients which publication, your education clients, which publications they read and get their information on.
Nice. Welcome to Paul Durrant, who I can see is one of our guests today. PDT was he was on the other side yesterday, and he was offering advice on sales, which is brilliant advice. And he makes a comment here: talk, but don't stalk. So thank you for that, PDT. Question from Abby. What advice would you have for a talent agency at this time? I'm the only agency in my county of Hampshire, and I would love to push my brand further. So talent agency in Hampshire.
So I'm assuming you want to push it further than Hampshire, is that right? But just remember.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe in Hampshire, but kind of further in Hampshire. Maybe, Abby, you can give us a bit of confirmation on that. But I think what she means is, how do I get my name out in Hampshire?
Yeah. So we all need to bear in mind, I might keep on picking up these publications and this, that, and the other. Look, I've got a television. That means we all need to think about the local TV and local radio. So I was, when I was in Worcester, 3 weeks ago, before lockdown happened, I was hearing, I've got a friend who presents the BBC show, Hereford and Worcester, and he was actually interviewing an education expert, a teacher, and gave her a massive plug. She was basically showing her expertise all about how to do home learning, and then she didn't say, oh, and actually I can help you out to it, but basically think about the local press first. And another thing is, when you get into the local press, the big boys, ITV and all the national journalists, they're always looking for local stories, which they can then potentially break into the national arena as well.
It's a really good point, because you're right. They tend to, once you've done one local, that's when you get the calls from the national. So great idea. A question from Emma, not me, another Emma. What PR tips can you recommend to a small business who had a very small budget and now no budget, as business has been closed overnight? Oh, sorry to hear that, Emma. She runs a reflexology and therapy centre. So PR tips to recommend. Essentially, how do you do PR on a budget? I know you talk about this a lot, Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I started out. I had zero money. What I used to do was I used to go with my 2 children in their buggies and go to WH Smith's and buy all the publications. Actually, you can still do that. You can still go to the supermarkets and buy the magazines which you think are good for you. So yes, you'll have to spend a bit of, let's say, 20 quid on those magazines. But just try and think of I always say nail it in 8, an elevator pitch. Try and have a very short and succinct elevator pitch to turn into your bio. So I train entrepreneurs how to secure press coverage. So that's one thing. So what would you say for your reflexology? And you can say, I can't invent things at the moment. I can normally do things. But anyway, local reflexologist offers tips on how to sleep well, or something like that, or the most common blah, blah, blah. And then you just, and then it's literally sending an email again, which is free, having a headline. Hopefully they'll open it. But if you want to keep it local, people do like local girl done good stories. So I'm from Worcester. So when I was running my knitwear, I pitched to the local Worcester magazine, and they published me, which was brilliant. But all of this was free. I didn't have to pay a penny. And I do have like a checklist on my website if you'd like to download that, and it's like the 7 steps of what you should do for getting into the press, and all of those are free. As in, all the actions you can take are free. You can go to Twitter, have a look. You can do your talk, not stalk, Paul Durrant. Thank you so much. Gently watch what they're doing, following them. But just for everybody watching, please don't give up on your PR efforts. Often it takes 1, 2, or 3 goes to actually get yourself into the press. And they do say, the journalists always say, send it out there, let them, their inboxes are going to be absolutely overloaded at the moment. So it has to have that killer headline, and then chase them up 2 days later. And if they haven't got back to you, then I think I just actually move on. But another really important tip is to be focused on, just literally 5, 10 maximum journalists that you really want to have, who are your dream journos you'd love to speak with. Okay, those are my killer tips there.
Really good tips. And again, this Meet the Journalists we did the other night, I know Amanda was tuned in, all of the journalists said make it as personal as possible. So make me know that I'm the person you want to talk to. And I guess they're human beings at the end of the day. Okay, wonderful, Amanda.
I do love flattery, because again, it's a thankless task. They'd say, I loved your article in the Financial Times about blah, blah, blah. It really resonated with me because of X, Y, Z. And then you can do a little, and then it has to be 3 bullet points. Please don't do an essay. Think about when you're opening up an email. It literally is going to be, dear so-and-so, loved your piece about X, Y, and Z. I feel this would be, I'd like to introduce you to this, blah, blah, blah. And then 1, 2, 3 bullet points. Would you like to know anything more? Please get in touch. That is it. No essays, please.
Lovely, which actually completely segues in, 4 minutes left and still lots of questions coming in, but it segues into the next question, which is, if I approach a journalist, what structure should I use? Email, Word document, images, and full article, question mark behind all of those words. So yeah, okay. Maybe just to kind of reflect again on what you've just said, which I thought was brilliant in terms of what to include.
Yeah. So, okay, and I remember going to one of your events, Emma, and Kiki Luzu, I can't remember how to pronounce her surname, who used to be the editor, the small business journalist for Sunday Times. She always said, never click. Journalists don't want to be clicking links anywhere. It just needs to be a one-stop shop. So if you've got any images, you can use snipping tool, and then you can actually, put it in as part of the actual email itself. So it's got to be very short and succinct. If you have got a press release, don't send it as an attachment, okay? Just grab your press release from your Word document and then paste it into the body of the email. So you can say, dear so-and-so, loved your article in XYZ. I wanted to, I feel your readers would benefit from blah, blah, blah. Or I wanted to give you a heads up on this breaking news that's happening. 3 bullet points. And then you can say, please see press release below. And then down below is your press release, okay?
Beautiful.
And images,
lovely.
Sorry, I have to say about images, again, people's inbox are bursting, so there has to be low res, but I would recommend you literally do snipping tool, and then that's literally going to be, it won't even be a megabyte for an image. Do you know what snipping tool is?
No.
Oh, God, I use it about 50 times a day. It's an app on your computer. It should be naturally in there, so just look in your settings and go snipping tool, and you literally can do a screen grab or an image. You can literally cut a photo out of whatever you want. I'm not explaining it very well. Anyway, if somebody can explain better what snipping tool is, you just literally, it's like doing a screen grab, but you're highlighting the area with your mouse, and then just click, bing, and it's there. It's great. It's so good.
You look so excited by all of that. We have 2 minutes, so I'm going to pose this final question. So final question, which should be natural territory for you based on your first business. So I make handmade natural soaps. What approach can I take to gain more PR for my products? And that's from Vanessa.
Oh, Vanessa, I need you. We're all getting such dry hands, and I hope your soaps probably don't contain any parabens, and they're all natural, as you've just said. You need to get out there, because you see shopping editors, shopping editors, it's the people who do these pages here. Hang on a sec. There. They want to hear from you. What is it that's different? Why did you set up your business? What is it that makes you stand out of the crowd from all those other natural soap sellers out there? But we all need to hear from you, because, we need natural soap, because we're having to wash our hands a million times. So you should be selling out big time.
Amazing. What a very positive point on which to end. Amanda Fitzgerald, always a pleasure. You mentioned your website earlier where people could download free tips on how to do free PR. So just let everybody know where they can find you.
Sure, it is. Thank you very much for asking that, Emma. So it is amandapr.com. And inside you'll see the free tips, but you also see the interview I did yesterday with a journalist. That's on my blog. And another thing for all of us who are self-isolating, I don't know whether you know this, Emma, I did an interview with Terry Waite. Oh my goodness, he was incredible. He gave so many amazing tips on how to manage our self-isolation, because he was a hostage back in the 1980s, 5 years in solitary confinement. And that is also within my the homepage of my website. So I do ask everybody to to watch the interview, because he honestly, he changed my life. He's given me some brilliant tips on how to handle the self-isolation. And one of the tips is to get dressed every day and try and look, how you normally do, because instead of slopping around in pajamas.
And did anyone think they'd hear that on a PR webinar? Just on that, lovely comment. The one thing I'm starting to love about the daily lunch and learn, and we could all do with a bit of this, is kind of peer support. So Rumana has said, Vanessa, with her handmade soaps, her natural soaps, Vanessa can contact me as I sell British products. So Vanessa, we will try and figure out, if it's not against GDPR and data protection, if we can connect the two of you up and see if something comes from it. Amanda Fitzgerald, you have been a joy. You have put joy into our living rooms today. So thank you so much for that and all of your top PR tips. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with Danny Witter, who is going to talk about cause marketing. On Thursday, we have the Small Business Minister, and then we kick off again next week post-Easter with our daily lunch and learn. So do continue to join me 12 till 12:30 every day. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us today, and huge thanks to Amanda Fitzgerald, our PR resident expert. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.